Welcome to another episode of Bros and Beers. We are your hosts, Nick Keeland and Ron Smith.
Hey
Tonight,
guys.
we will be talking about some injuries and then biggest waivers that you should be addressing this on Wednesday, most weeks. To start us off, though, Ron, what injury should we be talking about?
So there's a few big injuries to some pretty fantasy relevant players this weekend. Roma Dunze is apparently week to week with an MCL sprain. Didn't do a whole lot in the week one game. But being a rookie, he could potentially turn into. Obviously, you never know what rookies are going to do, but having him go down early, I think a lot of people were expecting more out of him, so him going down is going to hurt. David Njoku week to week with an ankle injury. I didn't really see what happened. I was watching that game. I didn't see what happened, but he just kind of disappeared. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully that one's not too bad, but we'll see. Jake Ferguson, another tight end, knee injury, not yet ruled out for week 2, but we'll see. See what happens there. Probably, I'd say the 1A biggest injury of this weekend was Jordan Love Friday night with that sprained PCL, headed to the IR. He's expected to miss 3 to 6 weeks. Hopefully I know you have him on a few teams. Hopefully, we'll see him hit that 3-week mark instead of the 6-week. Kenneth Walker with the abdomen injury. Not an update on what's gonna happen with him. I think he had a oblique injury last season. So I don't know if it's something similar to that, but I know he didn't miss a whole lot of time last year with that. And then I'd say the 1B big injury of the weekend was Puka Nacua with a sprained PCL, and he's expected to hit the IR and be out at least 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's there's definitely been worse weeks for injuries, but
Yeah,
Puka and Jordan Love and potentially Kenneth Walker, it's big name players. Who
absolutely.
who are you looking to add then? Who's your number one ad of the week, Ron?
I think this one's pretty obvious. Isaiah Likely, breakout game for him. 9 catches, 12 targets, 111 yards, and a touchdown. Almost a second touchdown if he maybe had size 13 feet instead of 15. Only owned, and just to preface, all of our ownage percentages are from Sleeper. That is our preferred app.
Yep.
So when we're giving you percentages of what people are owned, it is on the Sleeper app.
Yep. And we're trying to go for, depends on the week, but like this week we did anyone that's owned in 60% or less of the leagues.
Close. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Anyways, Likely owned in 44% of Sleeper leagues right now. With so many tight ends kind of having a dud week, definitely something to look into, and maybe he's your guy, but I expect him to be the number one waiver wire pickup this week.
Okay. And also he does play against the Raiders, so great matchup.
Right.
The Ravens should just spank them.
That should be a good bounce back game for Baltimore.
Yeah.
Definitely. Las Vegas actually looked like they have a pretty stingy defense this year, so we'll see what happens. But Baltimore's a good team. I think they expected to do better week 1, so we'll see how they fare against Las Vegas next week.
Yeah. Can I give you some players that are people that you could potentially drop for Isaiah Likely, and you kind of just tell me yes or no if you would?
Yeah, do it up.
All right, so first off, we got Dalton Schultz, who's owned in 81% of leagues. Would you drop him for Isaiah Likely?
I think Dalton Schultz is going to be the 5th option in Houston. We know he's a good player, but I definitely don't think he's going to be putting up the same numbers. I'd say yes.
Okay. Next up, we got Cole Kmet, 78%.
Another yes. I think another guy that's buried in, he's option. Well, with a Dunze out, he's probably moved up now, but option number 4 or 5 in that pecking order there. So I'd say yes on Komet as well.
Mm-hmm. Juki Hollick, can I give you a player that y'all can drop also? Of course. What are you thinking?
Absolutely.
Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb. Well, he should be able to be on IR.
If you have an IR spot, you need to hold on to him. But otherwise, if you're in a league that does not have IR, Drum Ford looked pretty good. So,
He did.
Third player that you could potentially drop, Dallas Goedert, 98% ownership.
I know he didn't have a great week, but I'd find it tough to drop him because he has proven to be a pretty reliable option. He's probably going to be the third option in Philly. So if there's defenses that are game planning against AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, he could benefit from that. I'd find it tough to drop him. Eagles are just going to be such a good offense too, and Jalen's going to be spreading the ball around. Hopefully, Saquon doesn't take too much work away from the passing game, but I think Dallas Goedert he probably hit his floor that first game, so it'd be tough to drop him.
I agree with that. He's a big name guy, and he's just reliable. Fourth player, Chig Okonkwo for the Titans, 61% owned.
I think he had a good game. Looks to be a good red zone target, and with not a whole lot with a banged up DeAndre Hopkins, obviously he's getting older. Calvin Ridley is probably going to be mainly a downfield target for Will Levis. And I think Levis might have to lean on Okonkwo a little bit more to be successful. I think he could potentially have a breakout year this year. I don't think I would drop him for likely.
Okay. And then lastly, Pat Freiermuth, 92%.
I'd say yes on that one for sure. I think the quarterback play in Pittsburgh this year is going to not be very good compared to Lamar Jackson. We know Lamar Jackson is not the greatest of throwers, but he's definitely better than what he showed us Thursday night. So I'd say likely for Freiermuth, I'd do that.
I'd agree. Not an offense I want to be a part of except for George Pickens. Who's the second player that you are looking to add this week?
Second player is one of the guys we talked out that had a nice breakout game, especially a guy that's been hurt pretty much the last 2 years completely. J.K. Dobbins, went for 135 and a touchdown, had a few receptions as well. I definitely think he's gonna. After that performance, I think he's earned the right to be the number one guy, get more touches. He's only owned in 58%. This is probably the guy that's got the highest ownage percentage on this list tonight. But in a league that's phasing out running backs, if he's as effective as he was on Sunday night with his touches, he could be a big factor this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's just got to stay healthy. So once again, I'll mention some players, and you let me know if you would drop that player for J.K. Dobbins. So starting us off, it's a big name, DeAndre Swift, 96%.
I would not give up on Swift yet. We know he's good. We know he's explosive. I definitely think the Bears' offense is going to be better than what they showed. I think Tennessee has a much improved defense compared to last year. They got a lot of players. I think Swift is going to have better days, and especially because most people drafted him probably pretty high. I would not drop Swift for Dobbins.
Okay. We did have a question on our last video we posted on Sunday, and from Let me look it up real quick. It was Fishing with Ka is the user's
Oh,
name.
okay.
And, sorry, I'm just pulling it up. Commented, guy in my league drafted Swift over Monty and Stevenson. Is there any hope for him, or should he sell his team ASAP? What are your thoughts?
I definitely think there's some hope for Swift. I think he's far and above the most talented back on the Bears. Best pass catcher as well. And obviously a big thing for PPR is being able to catch passes, especially when you're a running back. That's kind of why I picked Eckler as my start of the week this week, because I think Eckler was around his floor for what he could do with catching the ball. Um, Beside the point, I think that's going to be Swift. I think they're going to. I would be surprised if he has games where he's getting 10 or less touches. So he's explosive enough. He's explosive enough to where if he gets those 10 touches, he should be able to do some pretty good work with them.
Yeah, and with Dunze out, they might have to rely on him more, whether it's
Right.
running or catching balls.
Agreed.
As far as Fishing with Ka, I don't agree with you passing on Montgomery to take Swift, but to each your own.
Mm-hmm.
Next player, though, Trey Benson, 72%. And this is, most of the stuff we talk about is redraft. Dynasty,
Yes.
a little different.
So right now, Trey Benson is owned in 72% of leagues, which is pretty high. James Conner proved to be the bell cow. I know in leagues that I'm in that are dynasty and keeper leagues, I loved Trey Benson this year because Connor is an older back on a contract year, and I think Benson's going to take over that backfield next year.
Yes.
In terms of redraft leagues where you don't get keepers, Trey Benson isn't going to be doing anything unless James Conner is hurt. And James Conner is not hurt right now. So if you need a spot and you're not in a league where you can keep players or a dynasty or anything, I'd say Trey Benson is worth the drop to pick up J.K. Dobbins right now.
I'd agree. I mean, Trey Benson's somebody that could maybe win a league in the second half of the year. But if Dobbins stays healthy, we've seen what he can do.
Right. I just don't think Benson's going to play if Connor is healthy. I think Connor is going to be getting 80% plus touches if he's on the field.
Well, and it seems like, I think it's DeMercado. He's their
DeMercado, yep.
Yeah, he's their RB2, third down, sometimes third down back. Benson just doesn't have a role right now.
Right.
The third player on our list, Tyler Algier, owned in 49% of leagues.
He didn't really get much work this weekend. I think with the coaching change in Atlanta, I think Bijan is going to 100% turn into the bell cow of that team. He's just too good to take off the field. Right now with Dobbins looking like the 1A in Los Angeles, I would drop Algier for Dobbins.
So would I. Robinson's going to get 90% of the touches.
Absolutely.
He's
too good. He's too good not to.
Okay. Fourth on our list, Chase Brown with the Bengals, 75% ownership.
I had higher hopes for him, especially with Cincinnati trailing a lot of the game. I thought he would be getting some receiving work, and I don't know if it was just a really good defensive performance by New England.
I think so.
Or, yeah, I mean, it definitely was. Like, don't get me wrong, definitely was. But I think with the way Dobbins looked, and I think how Harbaugh is gonna use the Chargers offense, I think Dobbins is gonna be more effective right away than Chase Brown. So I would I'd say you could drop Chase Brown for Dobbins.
I'd agree. I mean, both of us think Chase Brown could take over that backfield eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bengals, I know it's only 1 week. We're trying not to overreact. But, like, all offseason, the Bengals have had a lot of question marks with Burrow's wrist. Higgins, whether he's either potentially going to hold out or he's always hurt. Chase holding out. They have Zach Moss. Like, there's just a lot of question marks around that offense. And, of course, the Chargers. It is one game. They're not a great team, but we know they're going to run. Next up
And
on
I
the
think
list. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Dobbins is going to be the pass catcher. Gus Edwards is not a pass catcher. Dobbins is going to get the work. If he stays healthy, he could easily take this backfield over.
Oh, yeah. Next up, we got Raheem Mostert at 93%.
Another one where it's 1 week. I mean, Mostert was number 3 running back behind McCaffrey last year. 21 wasn't it 21 touchdowns, total touchdowns, I think, something like that.
Yeah. I think 18 on the ground and
3 in the air. I think you're right. Yeah. Man, if you're playing and you need to win now, you see somebody who is effective as Dobbins was, compared to Mostert, who's, Dobbins has his injuries, Mostert has his age. But I think Miami's gonna lean on Achane a little bit more this year as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, I should mention these are supposed to be hard, not just for you, Ron, for anybody watching. These are players that a lot of people thought highly of, and it is only 1 week. Yes, we try not to overreact, but the best waivers happen within the first 2 or 3 weeks. You got injuries. You think somebody's going to be the guy, and all of a sudden they're not. Look at Kyrie Williams last year with Cam Akers.
Right.
I was super high on Cam Akers. I had him in 3 leagues.
I was too.
I didn't draft him high. He was a later round pick. But then Kyrie Williams comes in, and it's like, what the heck?
Week 1, right out of the gate, took over.
Yep. Yeah, so this is the time of the year where waivers are going to be more important, and just figuring out which players to drop is tough.
Right.
Last player that you could potentially drop for Dobbins, Chuba Hubbard, 70% ownership.
Oh, I definitely think better days are ahead for him because I think he's going to be the number 1 guy until Brooks comes back. But the Panthers are just going to be so bad. Tough matchup against New Orleans, but pretty discouraging to see Hubbard pretty much have no effect on the game whatsoever. If he's your one guy where you're kind of looking like, man, I could have Dobbins who's on a little bit better of a team, or Hubbard who is just on probably going to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Dobbins looked good, man. I'd probably I'd take him over Hubbard.
Okay, I'd agree. I got Hubbard on a couple teams, and he's like my 4th, 5th, sometimes even 6th running back. So
yeah,
you might as well take a flyer on Dobbins, and if he stays healthy, you never know.
Right.
Our third waiver pickup of the week. He's a Rams player, Tyler Johnson, with Puka Nacua going out. Tell us more about him, Ron.
Owned in 0% of sleeper leagues. 5 catches, 7 targets, 79 yards. Solid gain. A lot of that came on 1 catch, but you still like to see the 7 targets. And, the long catch is indicative of him potentially being a downfield threat or a guy that's going to catch the ball and do some things with the ball in his hands. This is kind of I know he's not a rookie. He's been in the league for a few years. It's kind of this, the situation with Puka last year was that Kupp didn't play, who's going to get the ball, and Puka kind of emerged. Tyler Johnson could definitely, we talked about him in our last video about how he could emerge as a solid wide receiver 3 flex play and even have some wide receiver 2 upside. Especially on a Rams offense that likes to throw the ball.
Yep. Yeah, they're going to be good. Having a number 2 option a clear number 2 option, hopefully, for the Rams. They got no tight end. Kyrie can catch the ball, but there's not much else there.
Agreed.
They do play the Cardinals this week. Josh Allen lit them up. So
yep.
It's a good matchup. Once again, I'm going to give you some players, and you let me know if you would drop that player for Tyler Johnson. So starting off, another one of the Rams wide receivers, Demarcus Robinson, owned in 12% of leagues.
Yeah, 100%. Um,
Which I don't.
Marcus is
That seems a little low,
a little low. I
to be
don't,
honest.
he's their wide receiver three. You'd think he'd be the one moving up to wide receiver two, but he's a little bit older.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think he's really ever been the greatest route runner, where I think Tyler Johnson, even coming out of college, was known for his route running and his hands. I think Stafford is going to prefer that. I'd take Johnson over Robinson.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, we know what he is.
Hmm.
Second,
Absolutely.
second player for the Raiders, Jacoby Myers, owned in 60% of leagues.
Um, he had a pretty good year last year. I pretty much didn't want anything to do with Las Vegas's offense this year. Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell doesn't matter. Gardner Minshew played pretty well. Um, but I think with Myers, I think he was actually their leading receiver on Sunday. But with Adams, who's obviously been a top five receiver in the league since we can all remember, Brock Bowers, I think, is going to be getting his work too. Um, Tough to trust any skill player with the quarterback on that team. I'd say I think Tyler Johnson and on a Rams team, like I said, that likes to throw, is high flying. I think he's worth a flyer.
Yep. Uh, Third player, and I don't trust these percentages. I feel like these players are owned a little bit more than this.
Hmm.
Jalen McMillan for the Bucks. It says 13%, but I swear to God, he's in like the 50 to 60% range.
Yeah. Regardless, I'd take Johnson over him. I think again, they're both on teams that are gonna have good offenses. Buccaneers looked really good. Um, McMillan had the 31-yard touchdown. It was his only catch. Um, I definitely think he's going to be more boom or bust as of right now as the wide receiver three on that team. I think McMillan's definitely going to get his work if you see an injury to Evans or Godwin. But right now, Johnson is the one that has a teammate that's injured, and he's going to step up. I would take Johnson over McMillan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if one of those two guys go down, McMillan will probably be one of the top waiver ads of that week.
Absolutely. Yep.
But right now, in a redraft league, he's riding the pine. So take a flyer on Tyler Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
See what happens.
Want
Next,
to give a shout out? Want to give a shout out to Juki Hollick real quick, who said he won his game and he's going to go celebrate.
hey,
Attaboy. Hopefully, he took some of our advice and ended up getting the W.
maybe
So yeah, just wanted to
maybe he
give a
started
quick shout out to
Baker.
him.
Your guy, Baker
He
Mayfield.
could have.
Speaking of which,
uh,
the fourth player of our waiver list, Baker Mayfield, 13% owned. I don't trust that. I feel like he's owned in more leagues, at least for one
I
quarterback.
think right.
289 for
Yeah,
four
I don't think that's
touchdowns,
right either.
37.66 points. Um, yeah. Do you got anything else to add to that, Ron?
Um, my start of the week, my app says 41%, so I definitely
Yeah,
don't think 13%
I
is right either.
I think the
Um,
the computer part of sleeper is not accurate.
yeah.
So,
That's beyond the point. He's still owned in less than 50% of the leagues,
mhm.
which after being a top 10 quarterback last year with a future Hall of Fame wide receiver and another really good wide receiver, um, kind of baffling. But yeah, my start of the week at quarterback, and he torched the Commanders, and I think that's going to continue. I mean, just another year with the same players. He looked really good last year. Um, I look for him to continue to do that. I think Tampa Bay is going to be throwing the ball a lot this year.
Yeah, and they have a pretty good matchup next week at Detroit. Stafford
Hmm.
had over 300 yards against them,
Yeah,
and now you could say that Baker has a better receiving core than Stafford.
right.
So, first player though that we're gonna discuss, Caleb Williams, 91% of leagues. Would you drop Caleb
Hmm.
Williams for Baker Mayfield?
Again, strictly redraft.
Yes.
Caleb didn't look good. Playing against a pretty tough defense, but this is kind of a tale of two matchups where Baker had a better matchup than Caleb. So there could be better days for Caleb to come. He's on a good, he's got good weapons. I think that Bears offense is going to be a lot better than what they showed us on Sunday. But that being said, if you're in need of a quarterback and you got Caleb and nobody else, and Baker is there, I think you'd be silly not to take Baker.
Yeah, I mean, or if you have Jordan Love and you got Caleb as your bench guy,
Right, absolutely.
throw Jordan Love on your IR
Yep.
and pick up Baker. Or
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if you have Jordan Love and you don't have an IR spot, I would drop Caleb. Hopefully, Jordan Love comes back in 3 to 6 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got two great quarterbacks.
Right, absolutely. Could use one as trade bait if you really need to.
Having two quarterbacks is not a bad idea.
It's not.
Hard,
Never
hard,
know what could happen with injuries, but you need bye week replacements, obviously. But
I mean,
who knows?
our IDP Dynasty League, I only have two quarterbacks. It's a super flex. I have Jordan Love and Justin Herbert. And right now, my only option is Malik Willis. That is literally the only quarterback that's available on our waivers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel too good about it. So I'm going to have to make a trade somehow.
Mm-hmm.
We got a couple guys that have four quarterbacks, so I'll have to work some magic to get one of them. Next up, though, Kirk Cousins, 53%. Would you drop Baker for him? Or I'm sorry, would you drop Kirk Cousins for Baker?
Absolutely. Kirk Cousins didn't look good. Again, another tough matchup. Pittsburgh got a great defense. Maybe Kirk's not 100%,
I
but
don't think he's fully healthy.
I don't think he is either. I think there's probably going to be some lingering issues with that Achilles. I think he pushed himself probably a little too early. He's definitely going to keep playing, even though they drafted Penix. Like, they're paying him way too much money to sit on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
But Baker, he's definitely the better quarterback right now. I'm dropping Cousins for Baker.
Yeah, I mean, it's one game, tough matchup. They both have the weapons,
Mm-hmm.
but Baker had a better year last year.
Absolutely.
Looked a
Well,
lot better.
Kirk
Well,
was
Kirk
hurt
was
half the
hurt.
year, so
That's
yeah.
true. But even so, Cousins has never been a phenomenal fantasy asset. He's always like right around
Right.
10 through 12. Kirk's playing in Atlanta,
Yep.
um, where he's got London. He's got some weapons, but yeah, I'd agree. Baker over Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, Justin Herbert, 72%.
Yeah. Another big name quarterback. Didn't really like him this year coming in with the foot injury. New coach who likes to run the ball. Um, I think Herbert's going to end up having one of his worst years as a pro, statistically, I should say. Maybe the coaching change and the scheme is going to help their team win football games. But fantasy perspective, I don't think, before Jim Harbaugh, he was throwing 30 to 40 times a game, and I think it's going to probably be closer to 20 to 30.
Yeah,
I'd drop Herbert for Baker.
I would too. McConkey looked good,
Mm-hmm.
but like we talked about earlier, they're going to run a lot. Dobbins looked great,
Yep.
and we'll see. They played the
We'll see.
Raiders, so
Mm-hmm.
not the worst matchup. But speaking of the Raiders, our fifth player on the list, Alexander Madison, Mr. Former Viking.
Mm-hmm.
How'd he do this week, Ron?
Mr. Madison, 5 carries for 19 yards, 4 catches on 6 targets for 43 yards and a touchdown. I think the receiving work was a little surprising, but that was one thing that was kind of the knock on Zamir coming into this year was we didn't know how he was going to be used, receiving wise, third down wise. If this is an indication of things to come, Madison, if he's getting 6 targets a game, catching 4 balls, if you need a flex or a running back to kind of take a shot on, he might be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a rookie, but this could be Cam Akers all over again from last year. A lot of
Yep.
people are hyped up about Zamir White. It's one game. He didn't look that great.
Mm-hmm.
And Madison's he's not a very good running back, but when Dalvin Cook was hurt, he always stepped up big. Besides
Absolutely.
last year.
Besides last year,
Yeah. I should mention
he got his chance to start and it didn't work out well.
no, I had a lot of high hopes from last year.
Yeah.
This upcoming week he does play against Baltimore. About as bad of a matchup you could have, so keep that in mind. He's a good bench stash, potentially a flex on a league that has 12 or more teams. But once again, I'm going to name off some players. You're going to let me know if you would drop them. Either Rico Dowdle or Zeke Elliott.
Those two had a pretty even split. I'd say for Rico, yes. I think Zeke's going to be the running back to own there. I don't know if I'd drop Zeke for Madison just because the Cowboys are just going to be such a good offense again. I think he's going to have a lot of goal line opportunities to score touchdowns, and it looks like they're still going to try to get him the ball receiving out of the backfield. I know they're going to try to do a pretty even split. So for Rico, yes. For Zeke, I'd say no.
Yeah, no, Rico. We'll see. It's early, but
Well, yeah.
Zeke has
That could be the
familiarity on that
excuse.
team. So
That could be the excuse for everybody we're talking about right now that it's early. But if it's something that you're in dire need of and you need somebody, that's kind of what we're
I
that's
mean,
kind of what we're aiming for.
hopefully most of these players are not in your starting lineup. Is where I'm going with.
Right.
Mostert,
Right.
some teams, yes, but these are bench players,
Mm-hmm.
and I shouldn't say that. Most of these players are bench players.
Some of them are. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Some of them could be flex players, and
Swift
some
was
guys are.
definitely RB2s on
Yeah.
most teams.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Next player though for the Dolphins, Raheem Mostert.
Mostert, number 2 guy in Miami. He's not going to be the one getting the receiving work where Madison is. I think it might be worth it with Mostert. Mostert is on a good offense. Didn't do much. He's a super explosive guy, but if he's not getting the volume, it's not going to make a difference. And if Madison continues to prove that he's a third down back on a bad Las Vegas team, he could be getting a lot of targets every week. So right now, I'd say Mostert might be worth it. I know he's probably he's probably middle round draft pick, so you don't have a lot invested in him.
Hopefully he
Could be
was
worth
drafted as your third running back.
Right.
But I've seen a lot of teams where he's drafted as a second. So
Right.
I don't know if I could do it just because it's close. I mean, Madison has a lot of upside. He's younger, but Mostert, the Dolphins are gonna score 30 points a game. He's probably gonna be their goal line guy. It's close. I think Madison has more upside because
I think that one's close. If you have other running backs on your team that you're already playing over Mostert, it might be worth it. If Mostert is one of your top 2 guys, maybe not.
I agree. Yeah, if he's a bench player, take a shot on Madison.
Right. Especially like we said, we're talking PPR.
Yes.
That's our standard scoring. I think that's kind of the standard now for most fantasy leagues. So having a running back that's catching the ball is very important. And if Mostert's not the one getting that receiving work, then he's probably going to be getting 10 or less touches a game with Achane.
Oh, totally agree. Especially when Jalen Wright starts playing.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna be looking good.
Right.
The third player on this list, Gus Edwards, 79%.
It's another guy not going to be getting a whole lot of receiving work. Could end up being the goal line back. But he's on a worse team. He's not as good as Mostert. I would drop Edwards for Madison.
Same here. I think this one should be easy, but you never know.
Right.
Dameon Pierce for the Texans.
Dameon Pierce is not going to see the field a lot this year, especially if Joe Mixon keeps doing what he did this week. He looked fantastic. That Houston team is going to be very good, and I accidentally hit my mute, so sorry about that. They went out and got Mixon for a reason. Easy choice. Drop Pierce for Madison.
Yeah, I mean, when you got 30 carries a game, there's no room for anyone else.
No.
And they should be up a lot. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Secondly, sorry.
I was just gonna say Mixon might end up having the best year of his career this year.
Yeah, and I think last year was one of his best years of his career anyways. So, and he's gonna blow that out of the waters.
Right.
Lastly, with Madison, Blake Corum, 76%. Which is insane.
It is insane. Third round pick this year for the Rams. It kind of seemed like the way things were going through the preseason that, like you said, one of your hot takes this year was Corum and Kyren being a committee, but Kyren got over 20 touches and Blake Corum didn't touch the ball once.
Yeah.
For handcuff purposes, if you have Kyren and you're pretty thin depth-wise, don't drop Corum. If you have Corum as a bench stash and you're waiting for Kyren to get hurt, pick up Madison. You can't... I was just going to say one more thing. You can't play fantasy football expecting people to get hurt.
Correct.
But it's week 1. I think Corum's going to have a role moving forward, but if you need a guy that's playing right now and is going to be effective, if you need if you need a running back to start, I'd say yes. Yeah,
I mean, you should never play, like you said, fantasy hoping for an injury, especially one of your own players. I don't like the handcuff strategy because the whole point of fantasy is to throw as many lottery tickets in a sense out there. And if you're throwing 2 lottery tickets at once with 2 players, it just doesn't make sense. But if Kyren does go down, Corum is a league winner. He can catch, he can block.
Absolutely.
He can run. Like, he is a stud. But if he doesn't see the field, it doesn't matter.
You're right.
Moving on, we got Rashid Shaheed playing against Dallas this next week.
Rashid Shaheed, he 144%, 3 catches, 5 targets for 73 yards. He did have that long 50 plus yard touchdown. He's mostly been a boomer bust player most of his career. But if he keeps booming, I mean, he had more targets than Chris Olave week 1. I know the game got out of hand pretty early, where New Orleans was up, I think 30-3 by halftime.
Yeah.
So I don't think they really needed to focus on getting their top players the ball, but still, a good week. Rashid Shaheed putting up 16 points. I bet his ceiling's probably going to be 20 points most weeks. So
the problem with him, I will say, is his floor can be really small.
Right.
Because he's a deep threat. And I mean, I could see a lot of games where he has 1 for 43 yards.
Right.
2
most of his
55 or whatever.
Yeah, most of his targets are probably going to be 20 plus yards down the field. But yeah.
Some players to potentially drop. Cortland Sutton, 79%.
I'm not dropping Sutton for Shaheed. He's the alpha. He's the number one wide receiver in Denver. I think they are going to be better weeks to come from Denver. Seattle has two really good cornerbacks. I think I think he did still lead the wide receivers in like in a yardage standpoint. But yeah, he's a good wide receiver. He's going to score touchdowns. He scored double-digit touchdowns last year. He'll probably end up doing it again. He's got, I'd say him and Shaheed probably have the same, probably close to the same ceiling on the basis of scoring the maximum amount of points they could score in a week. But I think Sutton's floor is much higher than Shaheed. I'm not dropping Sutton for Shaheed.
No, I agree. I mean, Sutton's the number one on that team. Not a great offense either, but he will at least get targets every week.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, Xavier, I think it's Leggett,
Yeah.
50% owned. Ownership.
For this one, I think I'd take the flyer on Shaheed. I think he's going to end up being the number 2 wide receiver on this team. And Leggett's going to be on one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I think they're both kind of toss-ups because Leggett could be good if Carolina figures it out. But they do have Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen. I think right now he's a little bit lower on the depth chart than Shaheed is going to be. But yeah, as far as dropping Leggett for Shaheed, I'd do that. I think Shaheed could be a bigger part of the offense than we anticipate. Where Leggett's a rookie on a really bad team, I would drop him.
Yeah, and he's not going to see the field a lot yet.
Right.
Another player who I've been high on, who had a complete dud, Josh Palmer, 65% ownership.
Yeah. My favorite receiver for the Chargers is McConkey. I said a couple videos ago, McConkey's gonna. I said he was kind of gonna be one of the breakout players, and I know that was just for like the week 1, but I think that's just gonna be for the year. I think he's kind of taken over Keenan Allen's spot, which was Herbert's favorite receiver. Palmer's good. I think he's still gonna get his work though. Him and Herbert also do have some pretty good chemistry. I think it's a little early to panic on Palmer though, and that's another player where I believe his floor is higher than Shaheed's. Seeing as Shaheed's pretty much a boomer bust player every week, where Palmer is probably going to be a little bit more consistent. I wouldn't drop Palmer. I'm with you. I was pretty high on him. He's like the returning wide receiver 1 for that team. I shouldn't say he's returning wide receiver 1. He's just the returning wide receiver who's becoming the wide receiver 1. I think it's a little early to panic on him yet. I would not drop Palmer for Shaheed.
Same here. I mean, McConkey is a rookie. He had a good game, but he's going to have some lows. Palmer's been in the league for this is his 3rd year, I think. 3rd or 4th?
3rd or 4th year, yeah.
Yeah. He showed a lot of flashes last year when Allen was down, Mike Williams was down. There's already some chemistry there. I wouldn't drop him either because Herbert's still talented. So
he is.
Yeah.
He is. I know I've said that I don't really like the Chargers. I think they're going to run a lot, and I think Herbert's going to do bad. That doesn't mean that his skill players are necessarily going to do bad.
No, and they have no tight ends there. So between Palmer,
very true.
Quentin Johnson, we'll see. But I got one last player to talk about as far as Shaheed. Would you rather pick up Rashid Shaheed or Pierce for the Colts? Both similar skill sets.
Good one.
Similar roles.
Yeah. I think Pierce, I think a lot of his production this last week came on 2 catches. They could both end up being like pretty boomer busty players. I said busty, sorry. . 'Cause, 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 'cause that's a tough one. It's I think Indianapolis has better potential for their um, offense to be good. Richardson has to prove he can throw the ball. I mean, the touchdown that he threw to Pierce, that 60-yard bomb, was
That.
probably one of the best throws we're going to see all year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, he's probably the number 2 on New Orleans. Pierce, I think Pierce technically right now is the number 2 in Indianapolis. I think Adonai Mitchell is going to end up usurping him for the wide receiver 2 spot. Um, so I think that call kind of comes down to who else you might have on your roster.
Yep.
Like if you got Olave or one of the, maybe Juwan Johnson on your roster and you're looking to pick one of these 2 guys up, I'd definitely go Pierce just to not have too many guys on one team. And then same, vice versa. If you have Pittman or Adonai Mitchell on your squad and you're looking to pick up Pierce or Shaheed, I'd probably go with Shaheed.
Yeah, I mean, also with the Colts, Josh Downs will be coming back eventually. So
Very true. That is true. Yes. So that's
there,
another thing. Yeah, it's probably just down to who's on your roster and what you need at that point.
Pierce could very easily be the 4th wide receiver in that team in 3 weeks.
Right.
So.
Absolutely.
Next player on our list for the Cowboys, Brandon Cooks, 40% ownership. Had a pretty good game this past week against the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Caught the lone touchdown, 4 catches on 7 targets for 40 yards. I mean, Dallas is going to be a good offense this year. They were kind of middling, but they played a really good Cleveland defense. So definitely better days to come. So for the wide receiver 2 on a really good offense, playing against a really good defense, to have 4 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown, you definitely love to see that. And Cooks, at one point, I can't remember
He was
how
a
many years it
stud.
was, but there was I'm going to look that up real quick because it's a pretty cool stat that I
However many.
didn't know about. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
7.
He had four 1,000-yard seasons in a row, playing for 3 different teams. And then then he had 2 more once he went to Houston. The dude's produced. Obviously he's second fiddle to CeeDee Lamb, but with Ferguson going down, we could see if Ferguson went down, we don't know if he's going to be out.
No.
But if that's the case, you can definitely count on Brandon Cooks getting a few more targets a game.
Yeah, I mean, he's the number 1 two wide receiver on a great team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a great ad for this year.
Yeah.
But we'll see. First player you could potentially drop for him, Darnell Mooney for the Falcons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Falcons looked discombobulated. Mooney's going to be the 4th option on that team, behind London, Pitts, and Robinson. I would drop Cooks. The Cowboys' offense is going to be
You would drop
much
Mooney?
better than that. Yes.
Okay.
Cowboys' offense is going to be much better than Atlanta's this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I did have a player in there, but I'm going to switch it up.
Okay.
Would you drop Cooks? Or I'm sorry, would you pick up Cooks for Josh Palmer? 65%.
I'd say yes.
Okay.
Again, better offense. Don't really know if Josh Palmer's going to end up being the 1 or the 2 on this team yet. It kind of looked like he might end up being the 2 if McConkey continues to step up. And I definitely don't think Chargers are going to have as good of an offense as Dallas.
No, they're going to score probably 15 points more a game.
Right.
I'd say without the touchdown, this is Cook's floor. 4 for 40.
4 for 40, I agree. That's probably his floor. Absolutely.
And
his ceiling is probably 25 points a game.
yeah,
Because he can still do that.
I mean, if they try to take out Lamb and Ferguson is actually hurt, Cooks has shown that he can be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Last player for the Bills, Curtis Samuel, 73%.
Curtis Samuel. I think Josh Allen showed a glimpse of what he's going to be doing with the ball this year, and he's going to be spreading the love. I think Curtis Samuel is one of those players where everywhere he goes, you just expect a little bit more, and he's never really lived up to those expectations. I feel like he's very injury prone as well, where Cooks has been like super durable throughout his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks I think they're going to be the target hogs on this team, where Curtis Samuel might get lucky if he sees like 80.
I mean, he's a similar player.
Similar player, yes.
Well, like where he might get 5 targets and there are a lot of deep balls.
Right. I think Samuel has traditionally been catching at the line of scrimmage and see what I can do with the ball in my hands type of player most of his career, where Cooks has been good route runner, quick, fast, good hands, can run any route and take the top off the defense. Where, Curtis Samuel could emerge as a number 1 wide receiver on this team, but with the way that Josh Allen basically, he just doesn't discriminate when he's throwing the ball. If you're open, you're open, and you're going to get a bullet to your chest. I know a lot of people drafted Samuel pretty high, but they also have Keon Coleman coming in this year. Allen's already got chemistry with Shakir. I think Samuel probably ends up as the wide receiver 3 on this team. They're going to be a good offense, but Cooks has been on his team for a few years now. I think he's got the more established role. I would drop Samuel for Cooks.
Same here. I mean, on any given week, the Bills have 4 people that could be their number 1 target.
Mm-hmm. James Cook could be that guy too.
Yeah, true. 5 guys. So Bills have a great offense, but there's not a lot of reliability with Samuel.
Right.
Last guy, who honestly I didn't even know who he was before week 1. Devon Vele for the Broncos. Only owned in 5% of leagues, but 8 targets, 8 catches for 39 yards. We know that Bo Nix is going to try to hit the ball out of his hands quick. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of air yards, but in PPR, it's not great, but 8 targets is awesome. So
8 targets is awesome. 8. He caught all of them, whether they're close to the line of scrimmage or not. 39 yards obviously isn't the greatest, but he did have a lot of hype throughout the preseason, and the emergence of Vele is why the Broncos probably ended up cutting Tim Patrick. He's an old rookie. He's 26 years old, so he's not like a guy that is, I feel like when you're an older rookie, you have a little bit less of a learning curve just because you've already been playing the game for so long. But who knows? He's kind of let's see what happens. He could. We just talked about Cortland Sutton a couple players ago, but this is a guy that could end up overtaking him as a wide receiver 1 if he proves capable of it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got hands, clearly. He caught 8 of 8. Hopefully he can just get more downfield throws. If Nix is capable of that, we'll see. He's got a tough matchup going against Pittsburgh this next week. Not great, but the players I chose for him are a little bit less rostered just because he's only owned in 5% of leagues. First up, I would say the waiver claim before the season even started. Andre Iosivas, owned in 22% of leagues, had a dud this week.
Yeah,
but he was picked
had a
up at all.
dud.
So
Um, yeah, Cincinnati didn't look good. I definitely don't think he's going to be doing much once Higgins comes back. Um, I don't think I would. I would pick up Vele for Iosivas.
yeah, it I would too.
Yeah.
Second player, we've already talked about him once, but
Yeah.
Curtis Samuel, 72% for the Bills.
I think I would drop him too. I mean, volume is volume and usage is such a huge thing in fantasy football where like if you're not getting the opportunities, you, it's the old saying is you can't score if you don't shoot. Um, and if you're not shooting, you can't score. Like if you don't get the ball, you can't do anything with it. I think Vele is going to get more opportunities than Samuel, regardless that he's on a worse team, on a worse offense. Denver has a good coach in Sean Payton. I think he's going to figure it out, and I think he likes Vele. So I would drop Samuel for Vele.
Okay. This is a deeper league player, and I feel like he's owned in a higher percentage in this because in all my 12-team leagues, he's owned. Wan'Dale Robinson for the Giants.
I am honestly staying away from anybody on the Giants offense. There's a reason I picked the Vikings defense as my start of the week for defenses is because Daniel Jones is atrocious.
Yeah.
The one thing Robinson has going for him is he's going to be the catch it at the line of scrimmage guy and watch me do what I can. So that is probably going to be his upside is that he could end up seeing pretty similar volume to Vele. But again, Malik Neighbors is going to be the number one wide receiver on that team, and he's going to be the unquestioned guy where Vele could usurp Sutton if he plays well. Yeah, I'm
Staying far away.
Yeah, I'm not touching anybody on the Giants. The only reason you ever touched anybody that was a New York Giant in previous years is because they had Saquon, and he's just an absolute freak. Other than that, I'm staying away from anybody that's in a New York Giants uniform.
Can I tell you the stat of the day, Ron?
Do it up.
Since Daniel Jones has signed his massive contract, he's thrown more touchdowns to the other team than his own players.
I saw that. I saw that earlier today, and I LOL'd.
That's a Giants thing. They were good back in the day, but
man. Right when I saw the news after it was after the year that the Giants beat the Vikings in the playoffs. That offseason they signed Daniel Jones to a
such a fluke.
4-year, $160 million contract. $40 million a year to literally be one of the crappiest quarterbacks in the NFL. I could play quarterback better than Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Giants
probably
sign
not.
him.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. But
you wouldn't be paid.
there are things that I can do better than Daniel Jones does play quarterback, and I don't get paid nearly as much as he does. Correct. So I thought that was a mistake right when it happened. Daniel Jones is not good. He's never going to be good. He should just switch to wide receiver. I think
tight end next Tim Tebow.
Yeah, maybe a tight end, but I think a good picture of his career can be the 80-yard touchdown run that he never scored.
And then he fell over.
He just tripped on nothing and fell. He tripped on like the 20-yard line and fell. I think that is basically
that'll be on his gravestone.
Basically a good image.
Or headstone.
God.
I ran 80 yards.
He's
and still didn't score.
The Giants are going to be kicking themselves in the butts for not taking a quarterback this year in the draft. I 100% believe that. Maybe they think better people are going to come out next year, and they think Neighbors was Neighbors was the guy they couldn't.
So I get it, but who's going to throw him the ball?
Exactly. I thought for sure they were taking McCarthy. I was very surprised when they didn't.
Yep.
But
we'll
did
see.
we?
Who knows?
Go ahead.
who knows what'll happen? There's a reason why we're not GMs. But
I know. If I was a GM, I wouldn't have signed Daniel Jones to a 4-year contract worth $160 million. That's for sure.
No, I would have released him. But yeah, so that is our waivers for the day. If you guys have any questions on other players that we didn't mention, make sure that you comment on our video, and we will address it when we are live Wednesday night. We're going to do a recap. A preview of Thursday night's game. Should be a short video talking about starts, sits, and just more football.
Yep.
Reminder
any questions? Sorry, go ahead.
No, just a reminder if you did like our content, to like the video, comment, subscribe. You'll get notifications of anytime we go live or post videos. Here is the rest of our social medias. You'll see on the bottom right is our email where you can send us questions and we'll answer them. And then on the bottom, the Twitch, that's where we actually go live. Come join us. Talk about football, beer, video games, how your day is going, whatever. Yeah, we look forward to posting more content. And until next time, thank you.
See you guys.